Yeah. Hello. The next session starts in 10 seconds. Do. Look, it worked.
Yeah. Well done, Ceylan. All right. So let's continue with a reading by Ceylan Öztrük. How should I start? Ceylan wrote this book. That's a good start, right? It's called The Motive. And The Motive is a publication that Ceylan published on the occasion on her exhibition Matter of None at Kunsthalle Fri-Art in Fribourg. It's still running till? Next week. Friday next week. The Motive is an autofictional text webbing. Ceylan calls it soup, she just told me. So it's an autofictional soup. Mestor, a marble gravestone sculptor, and around Mestor, a marble gravestone sculptor, and an inquiry by a very secretive amateur writer who is diagnosed to die in the near future and who wants to see her gravestone before leaving. Furthermore, the reader comes across rather pessimistic or angry thoughts about death, art and the so-called art world, patriarchy, capitalism and architecture, sculpture, history and writing. Humanity was doomed to the moment it rose higher than a tree.
I didn't say this.
This is in your book. Maybe we should start here. Yes, exactly. Wait, it is... Yeah, it is the customer saying this.
Yeah, true.
Okay, Ceylan Öztrük.
Hi, welcome. So, as Bene said, that it's a bit complex text that has many parts and many characters, and for me it was really a purpose to make it a little bit complex, to also reflect my confusion. And I will read two parts because the book consists of several letters and narrations. And I will read a part, and if Bene likes, he will also read a part because I like that it fits different voices. So, they seek something beyond what is written, something not manipulated, something emotional. They also question its functionality. Obviously, they've gotten bored of self-referential art operating within its own freedoms and functionalities. Art is not simply a way of getting a work into an exhibition space or of telling stories of the self. It is the ability to view things from a distance and in depth, even if not a part of you, to imagine the unseen and to create alternatives. I want to write about what's beyond written, what's not manipulated, the art of non-extant. As you know, in the quantum scale, the non-ext, or in the other words, the void, is also full. It is filled with matter. Bharat wrote a good text on this. She asks, what is the metric of emptiness? Now, if a vacuum is the absence of everything, of all matter, how can we be sure that we have nothing at hand? Then she goes by saying, infinity is the ongoing material reconfiguring of nothingness. And the finite is not its flattened or shortened projection on a cave wall, but an infinite richness. I read this text as queerness of spacing, and I'm very interested in this queerness, emphasizing what is left outside, discourse and outwritten. I want to write an argument about the fact that while the written is manipulated, the unwritten, the queerness of that which surrounds the writing must become a lifetime goal. Writing and outwriting, there is a footnote about the outwriting in the whole context. Here I mean the outside of the outwriting is the outside of the writing, literally the space that creates the text, for instance, letter spacing, the forms. Writing and outwriting complement each other. After all, writing evolved in the space that was beyond writing. And like everything else, it became institutionalized, was a tool of colonialism and the writing of history. And everything developed from there. That which is beyond writing cannot be written because it does not match up with the institutionalized writing. This is where sculpture comes to the fore. If you're wondering about its relevance, let me tell you this. Anything that isn't writing is sculpture. This is what Mestors say. There is no single thing that isn't sculpture. From an idea, a feeling, an energy field, or a way to a dancing body, it's all sculpture. Mestor claims all vacuum states of matter through sculptures, and the rest is writing, written by someone. If I had to explain the introduction to my research, I would go like this. The invention of writing and the birth of art are closely related. Some important developments took place during the era that came to be associated with the rise of individualism, circa 600 BC. It was the era that saw the rise of poetry and sculpture. We know that the Greeks learned writing from the Phoenicians because they had to record their trade. But writing developed in its full-blown form after the Greeks developed the vowels, as they wanted to record their epics into the form of poetry. On top of recording their commercial transactions, they wanted to immortalize their thinking and creations. In short, it was the need to record individual thoughts that supported the development of writing. This was the birth of art, as well as of the individual. Theoreticians argue that language evolved and developed in parallel with culture, whereas some researchers propose a new theory that has to do with the adaptation and mutation of language. These researchers argue that language developed genetic mutation and adaptation. According to Chomsky, language didn't evolve as a result of the need to communicate, but rather the drive behind it was the individual's yearning to express inner thoughts. In other words, language began to develop before the need to communicate in order to express one's thinking. The so-called birth of art is the acknowledgement of the concept of art. Humans are not the only living beings that can make art, but are the only living beings that can assign a label to it. The birth of art is based on the motive to record new thoughts. Individualism and birth of art are directly connected. It could be said that writing developed as a result of the need for expression, very much like poetry. When humans became individuals, they developed the need to record their experiences because they produced ideas. One produces an idea, records it, and then the idea keeps evolving until the time it's recorded again. The rise of individualism, and specifically the birth of poetry and sculpture, are also connected. This said, the so-called birth of art might be considered the birth of sculpture. The so-called first known marble, Kore sculpture. Kore sculpture is the freestanding life-size figure, is the dedication of Nicandre, circa 650. However, the Egyptians produced freestanding human figures more than 2,000 years ago, years before that, circa 3000 BC. Egyptian sculpture was frequently part of an architectural concept. Often these sculptures were integrated into the design of columns supporting the architectural structure. In conclusion, with the advance of individualism, sculpture turned into a purpose in its own right and was assigned the label art, which in turn made already excellent knowledge look as if it were something new on a different platform. The Eurocentric concept of art developed with the Greek perspective. The concept of art was born along with its terminology. Assigning art is an important individualistic approach. And look where it has brought us, unbelievable. In Western understanding, the productions of Eastern civilizations had a different purpose, an architectural function. When the same information arrived in the West, it was presented according to Western information values, recorded according to these values, became individual. Recording is an important individual activity. Eastern influence is molded to Greek ideas. Can you see the spacing here? Art is also freestanding now, just like sculpture. We can't deny the importance of this assignment, but the big picture information is the same. Only the concept differs. In the process of institutionalization, I never can say this, of individualism, this information was taken from what was assigned as void and presented as writing, then squeezed into terminology, which in the end got corrupted. It is true that there are plenty of architectural concepts in Egyptian sculpture, but it was the Greeks who developed the ideas of Kora. They discovered sculpture as its own objective. Do you follow me here? So, art that is created with self-awareness and self-worth became something itself, different purpose and function. In their search for the function of art, Mestor wasn't looking for any ordinary chorus, but for a particular Egyptian chorus that supported an architectural structure. A freestanding one wasn't enough. After sculpture, that was part of another function. Of course, this sculpture shouldn't be considered art because it supported architecture, considered to be crafts. We are talking rather about freestanding art, and we refer to existence. The label of craftsmanship was perpetuated, but the works produced within the framework of this concept were generally stolen by what was highlighted as individualism, and then imprisoned in a sterile white cube where they belong, a museum. And this one aspect Mestor couldn't link to. Let me explain you through colors. One side is light yellow, and the other one is apricot yellow. And after a while, you no longer know the hue of apricot. That's because light yellow is a colonialist. And let me tell you, the apricot is something else. There was a time it made orange yellow disappear. So I will read the short other part now. Dear tumor, I'm sorry, it's just hard change. Dear tumor, or should I have said life? One to my body. Another body informed me you've been with me for quite some time. Generally, around here, the translators of this institutional bitter body language are called doctors. Is it you who has been sending me all those messages I've been feeling for a long while now? At the end of the day, I'm the one who created you, me and my body. So you must be one of us. I'm not exactly sure what method of communication we can develop, but I hope you read this letter using my eyes. I think we can share a lot. They told me they didn't know much about your nature. I told them that should be obvious. because you were inside my body, and even I didn't know much about you. Dr. Wild laughed at me. I don't know why. And since I couldn't see you directly either, Dr. Wild drew a sketch of you on a piece of paper. I felt strange. I felt strange as I watched him draw. Did you feel the same? They try to observe you using machines. They are literally no different than inquisitive neighbors. They told me I would have to undergo these procedures. I have so much to ask you. I hope you don't mind. I will write again, and once again, welcome. Yours. You want to read it?
Jacque thought that buildings changed people. He was happy when he worked with a professor, but his colleagues were inflicted by concrete illness seen in people integrated with buildings. Eventually, it made them lose creative motives such as imagination or instinct. This was called institutionalization in daily language. Working on anything new? Asked the professor. Yes, Jacque said, not quite sure if he could trust him completely. Using his personal theories and methods, Jacque would prepare various questions about death and beyond for the newly deceased, index these questions to the seeds of various flowers and plants, and then saw these seeds in their graves. In theory, these plants were supposed to bloom with the answers. After sowing the seeds, he would follow the growth throughout the year, expecting the flowers to bloom with the answers. He had been working on this for about a year and a half. He resigned from the institution 2 years before and had been facing financial difficulties ever since. Ever since Jacque quit his job with the institution, the professor missed the creativity he used to contribute. The institution functioned like clockwork, but Jacque's creativity was lacking, and they were running out of ideas. They had begun mulling over where and whom to steal from. There was nothing new about institutions stealing the ideas and work of individuals. The professor asked again, "So, what are you working on these days?" In the department, we're currently busy studying the theory of whether to burn or bury, or what else to do with the deceased. Jacque realized the reason behind the professor's invitation was to pressure him. He was concerned about that concrete disease and wondered if he could become contracted through the conversation. Everything the professor said entered Jacque's mouth instead of his ears. In a moment of bewilderment, Jacque swallowed all the professor's words. Now he felt strangely nauseous. He excused himself and headed to the restroom. Seeing he was leaving the table, a man walked up to him and asked, "Where to, sir?" He made it into the restroom. He saw a man inside the booth in the entrance. He paid him the fee, and just as he was stepping inside, the man asked, "Are you going to urinate or defecate, sir?" "Why?" asked Jacque. "What does it matter?" "I was just curious," replied the man. "Personal interest." "I'm going to throw up," Jacque said. The man was startled. Apparently, Jacque had destroyed his fantasies. The man turned his head slowly to the right, then upwards onto the opposite side, locking his eyes in the void overhead. Jacque realized that the man had already started to fantasize again. He had chills and his stomach felt bad. The professor had been pressing him, and this in turn stressed him out no end. In the restroom, as he tried to get everything the professor stuffed in his mouth out, he remembered what Mestor told him. They would even shit in your mouth if you let them.
Thank you for reading.
This was the reading. I will ask you the same question like Ceylan. How did you come to writing as an artist?
I wish you would email me this question so I could think some days, but I don't know actually. But I think it's I think it's the most free form that I can have. I feel it's very free. I can form everything. I can think everything. I can create friends. I can create family. I can destroy my past. I can use theory. You can do everything in a text. And this is the reason, I think. And I'm obsessed with notes because I have a very short memory. I don't remember things. So it's as I didn't remember a phrase from the book. So it's really just turning into text the notes, I think. It started like this, but it's very free form.
I will come back to this later. I will start first. You wrote this book in Turkish and it's been translated into English, right?
Turkish, English.
You wrote it, both?
Both, yeah.
Okay. I mean, you already spoke about like bilingual, like what is Turkish for you?
So I can write very good theory in English, but I can write very good emotions in Turkish. Yeah, it's a very basic formula. I can be very sad in English and I can be very professional in English. That's really funny.
Schizophrenic.
Yeah.
I mean, you even read this part. I noted it also. I quoted it. There's the sentence like, anything that isn't writing is sculpture. And then you are a sculptor.
Yeah.
Do you think if you were a painter, you would say anything that isn't writing is painting?
But this phrase also means that painting is also a sculpture.
Because it says everything.
Everything. Because the main idea was once I did this work, it was the letter spacing. So the letter spacing, like this random shapes. So if you take this M, around everything is just everything. And everything is just with the forms and sculpture. Yeah, even the void, because it's everything with the matter, it's sculpture. Like everything, because everything is has a how do you say it? A matter form. Even the void, I say that.
And matter of none?
Yeah, that's even sculpturalized.
I like it. I mean, what to say? Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for coming. Thanks, Kunsthalle, for having us. And there's all the books. Have a look. There's the motive in French and English. Crazy. And there's also Ceylan's first book.
Second book, please.
But there's two, no?
Yeah.
There's also your first book. So buy them all. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I said to go. I'm good.
Let's have a drink.
Thank you so much. It was really good. It was fun. Did I use too fast or did I